Thanks again for doing this and for your partnership. We love working with Gallup, and this is always such a fascinating body of work. One of the biggest headlines from your State of the Global Workplace report was that there was a drop in employee engagement for only the second time since 2009. I think you said the first time in like 4 or 5 years, first being after COVID. It's a two-part question. One, what is engagement? What makes up? I'm assuming we're not talking about people, proposing at the office, right? What are we talking about when we mean employee engagement? And what are some of the reasons behind the decline that you all have been seeing?
It's remarkable how much of our life we spend working. We've made 2 estimates on this. One was actually another organization. They found that we spend 110,000 hours of a lifetime working. We replicated the analysis using our global data, and the lower bound is 83,000. Either way you look at it, we spend anywhere between 9 to 13 straight years of our life at work. So it's a fair question to say, well, how do we quantify how life at work is going? And that's what we're trying to accomplish here with this concept of employee engagement. I think what's got us so concerned is that despite the fact that there are so many, colleges, universities, MBA programs, great manager programs that have been doing these kind of trainings, there has been a doubling of engagement throughout the entire world. But most recently, as you mentioned, there's been a 2-point decline. And when you project that to how many millions of people, 30 million people are doing a lot worse today than they were last year. And that's a concern that I think all of us should share.
What, if you had, I know not all this is necessarily in the data, is there a biggest driver of that decline? When you double clicked on that, is there one thing that really stood out to you?
I think the single biggest decline is the idea that right now, if you want to know how a team is doing, look to how the manager is doing. If the manager emotionally checks out, the statistical chance that the team will as well is very high. And the group where we saw the largest decline is with managers. And I kind of don't blame them. Because right now we did a study here in the United States and we asked people, are you experiencing rapid change within your organization? It kind of feels like people were responding to us saying, what? Yeah. 70% said that they're experiencing a great deal of disruptive change. And that sort of human glue that's expected to drive that change are managers. And so they feel like everything is chaos. BCG just came out with a study. What executives want? Cost cutting. IoT analytics, they just did text analytics of all CEO earnings calls. Number one thing, more AI. It's just thing after thing after thing, new legislation from Washington. And it's managers that feel that effect and have to go get their teams energized to say, let's get up again this morning and go do this change. And it just wears on them. And so we're seeing that in the data. And ultimately, managers usually have higher engagement than their employees. They do globally, but they don't here in America. And if you want to see where there is a real recession happening now, there is an emotional recession that's happening in America's workplace, and it's been happening for the past couple of years. America went from 30 to 36% engaged in the workplace over a 10-year period of time. And since 2020, all those gains have been eviscerated. And that's a real concern because these have serious productivity consequences.
Totally. And to maybe take a different angle into this, productivity consequences are huge. Obviously, there are probably some questions around turnover and retention when it comes to employee engagement. But it seems like a pretty employer-friendly job market right now. And so if you're being a more cynical CEO or employer, is this a priority for them? Are you worried about that employee engagement? If you feel with AI, with so many people applying to our company, how do you juggle all of this? And where does employee engagement sort of rank for those?
Maybe I'll frame your question in a more pointed way, because I think there are some really cynical executives that when they hear the terms employee engagement, what they hear back is an employee happiness survey. Yep. Or an employee satisfaction survey. And they go, well, I don't want more of that. Get it out of here. I want more AI. What they don't realize is this has serious consequences on productivity. That 2-point drop that we saw globally, we believe, amounts at a $500 billion loss in productivity. And if organizations fully optimized based on what we would consider this emotional economy, we think that there could be gains in the economy of almost $10 trillion. And so I think that is the language that most executives speak, which is money. And so that's how you explain it in money terms.
It's such an important point that, like you said, can often be missed, which is what you're saying is an engaged workforce, a satisfied workforce is a more productive workforce. There's not a lot of people who hate their job who are like, I'm going to work so hard today because I just hate this place. So that makes a lot of sense. I want to dive in on the manager layer, which feels like such an important point that you started to highlight, because no matter how much you love your CEO, no matter how much you're inspired by your mission, maybe you dig going back into the office because they've got a new selection of top shelf candy or something. But like day to day, it's the people next to you. It's the manager that, like you said, is either a little checked out or you feel really supported by. Like, tell us more about the role that managers play in organizations and sort of that backbone of that day-to-day engagement.
It's incredible to me that despite everything that Peter Drucker had written about the importance of management, it's like it just immediately gets lost by so many executives. And right now there's even a concept that's going around which is called unbossing. And even McKinsey, they have a new book out a couple of years ago where they talked about power to the middle. And they said maybe they even had a role in accidentally going too far in terms of cutting middle management, because they said it's so critical. And the amount of studies on this is amazing. So LSE did a study, this is very recent. They looked at 35,000 manufacturing plants here in the United States. And they said that there's one factor that explains productivity more than things like IT development, R&D, and the skills of their employees, which is the practice of management. In fact, even the head of UPenn's Generative AI Center, Ethan Mollick, he came out with a new book recently called Co-Intelligence. I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. He has this moment where it's almost like he digresses and he goes, oh yeah, I used to do this research on a topic that a lot of people think is boring, which is on management. And I couldn't believe what I was reading. And he said, I looked at the sales of video games, and the one thing that accounted for 20% of the variance in video game sales was managers. And it was even more important than who the executives were and who designed the video game. Think about that. Yet it gets totally unnoticed. So, with so many of these executives that are dying for increased productivity gains, you hear some executives musing about the idea that they want their own Doge departments, when the real productivity already exists in the human intelligence that they already have, but they're not fully optimizing it, and yet they can. And it's through management.
Yeah, the Doge buzzsaw approach doesn't seem like a perfect way to improve manager engagement. Thinking about, though, like, you have so much data on this stuff. We've got a lot of managers in the room here, including one who's interviewing you. Like, what can managers do? And I guess the real question is, what can organizations and managers of managers do to improve that manager engagement? Like, how do you get that middle management layer more excited, more, I guess, trustworthy? Like, there's so many elements of engagement. Like, where do you go? Like, what's the first step?
Well, this is amazing to me. So we were inspired because we saw this study in the UK. Somebody went out and interviewed managers and said, have you ever been trained on the very basic principles of management? And a huge majority go, no, not at all. And we're like, wow, that's amazing. What if we pose that question to the entire world? So as part of our Gallup World Poll, we went to 140 countries, 2/3 of the world, we do face-to-face interviews. We literally show up in people's homes. The other 1/3, we call them at their homes. And everyone who identified as a manager, we pose that question to them. Have you ever been trained to do this? 56% of managers said, I've never been trained on what it means to be a manager. Think about that. And so if there's any place to start, go right there. There's a firm, not Gallup, it was published in The Atlantic, and this was in Italy, and they looked at a number of firms, and they went and did training, and they saw the managers that were trained on basic management principles saw an increase in productivity by 49% compared to those who didn't. It's sort of like how much math do you need to realize the very importance of the practice of management? So I think we would just go so far as to say, step one, train them.
Note to self, take a manager training. Got it. Perfect. One place that is causing a lot of uncertainty, but also a lot of gains, obviously, is AI. We had a big track this morning on AI. One of the themes we were talking about there was both scale adoption, agentic workforces, kind of building out these different workforce approaches to integration with AI and all sorts of different levels of expertise. Like, how I have to imagine this is such a tangled web, because you have excitement mixed with paranoia, mixed with confusion. Like, how does this moment shape up in terms of employee engagement? Like, how is technology right now at this pivotal moment affecting how employees are feeling?
Well, I think what's most remarkable is that everybody wants to see more of an embrace of AI, because some of the aspects of work, if it can be automated, it'll be amazing for everyone. But the reality is that while executives think that they have these huge AI rollout plans, employees still aren't using it. So we did a study with CHROs and said, how many of you are actually rolling out AI plans? I think it was 97% said that they've rolled out an extensive AI program. Then we went to employees and said, how many of you use this? Do you know what percent told us never? 67%. And by the way, the many of you in the room that are probably like, oh my gosh, I use it every day. I mean, I'm on it all the time. 4% agree with you. 4%. Now, what's the barrier to getting more AI into organizations? Effective managers. Because when we go in and see that when there are well-run teams by managers, they are far more likely to pick up AI in a more rapid and a more responsible way. Think about that. And I'll leave you with this thought too, because isn't it amazing if you think about what it is that you're doing with AI on a daily basis? Is you're effectively your own CEO with agents that report to you. So if you think about it, who were the original prompt engineers? Managers. Managers were arguably humanity's original prompt engineers. Why? Because they were the ones, not to artificial intelligence, but to human intelligence, had to give clear expectations. And now the same thing is required of all of us. If we are to effectively use AI, we must engage in the very basic management principles of just, can we give clear expectations to AI? And by the way, as humanity, we're not great at it. So we ask human beings today, this is the very foundation of what we call engagement. And we say, do you know what's expected of you at work? If we were so awesome at prompt engineering with human intelligence, guess what percent of people say that they can fully agree to what's expected of them at work? Half of all workers globally don't fully know. Think about that. But if we're going to get the real gains from AI, we need to do a lot better, not just at being able to prompt and give clear expectations. We need to be able to give clear expectations to each other to fully optimize not just AI, but the human intelligence that's already existed.
Amazing. So Jon's got 2 action items for your next one-on-one back at the office. Take a manager training, take a prompt engineering AI training. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Jon, for kicking us off.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.